Yeah, DevOps, if you think about it, yeah, is comprised of two terms, developer and operations. And in the old days, at least in the Microsoft world, operations meant click, 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 click. And you mouse around and do all this other stuff. And that was really cool if you had like, one or two servers that you need to configure, especially compared to what some of the other more traditional systems had been. So the really neat thing is, in the early Windows NT, you could create a user by just going click, 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 type, 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 and you were done, instead of having to write a lot of stuff that could be confusing. Of course, those servers could hold maybe 25 users, so it wasn't all that much of a big deal. But when our servers begin to get really large and to scale, in one of my Powershell books, I gave an example is that, okay, I can go click, 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 and I can create a user in 1 minute. That's fine, unless I have 10,000 users that I have to create. And that's not unheard of. I was doing a talk at the University of Florida a couple weeks ago, and they have 80,000 students. And so they need to create student accounts. And so that, and students change every year. So that gets to be very, very large, and you can't spend all semester trying to do it. That becomes the developer part. So the developer part of DevOps, means that you write code that is used to to perform your operational tasks. And luckily with tools like Powershell and stuff like that, it's becoming easier. So you're not having to write stuff in C++ or any of that kind of stuff, or JavaScript or what have you. My governing principle, is I do something manually, until it gets to the point that it's annoying to me. And so when something reaches that tipping scale, so if I've had to do something, the same thing, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, then I'll go ahead and automate it. I'll write a script for it. A very simple example of this is figuring out how much battery life I have left on like my Surface. So I had like I've had every version of the Microsoft Surface, and finding out how much battery lifetime that you had left was not easy to do on the earlier versions of the Surface. It was like kind of hidden, because we had all of the big, touch buttons, and you couldn't find it. So I wound up writing a very, very simple PowerShell script that called a WMI class, 132 battery, and I picked out how much time I had left. And then I saved that in a tile. So that's automating. So now I just click that tile, boom, it runs and it lets me know how much time left I have on my Surface. So that's a really, really simple example, but that's the kind of thing. So you don't spend a week writing a script to perform a 5-minute task, particularly if that 5-minute task is only done once or twice. You have to think of an ROI, what is your return on your investment? And if it's something that's going to need to be done repeatedly, or something that needs to be done on a whole bunch of systems, then the time spent automating just absolutely makes sense. I think that your culture has to appreciate and understand that. So in the old days, a lot of companies would have one person who did the development work, and the entire team, or IT org, had that one person who would write he was the scripter, the person that did all the automation. And I think that we're getting to the point to where our automation needs are such that there needs to be more than just that one person. We all need to start thinking about it. I taught a PowerShell class once several years ago, and as I was asked on the first day, I would always ask people what they were doing. What was their purpose, what they want to get out of class. And I had a person that was in there, and I think he got this exactly right. He was an IT manager. And an IT manager, And he says, yeah, I'm taking this class because I want to know what capabilities are available for my people. And so that I don't ask them to do something that's impossible, or so they don't tell me that they're not going to do something that would be really easy. So that is kind of a paradigm shift or a culture shift, where we start to look at, this in these terms. And then the next step above that, begins that we need to start emphasize the dev part a little bit more, than the ops part, and this means that we need to test our scripts. We need to have versioning control on our scripts and these kinds of things. And because I had a person tell me once, that if I go up and I'm using the GUI and I'm working on one server, I could mess that server up. But if I write a script and I run it against my entire network, then the script goes bad, I can mess up the entire network. And amazingly fast, I might add. How important is the education and coaching to moving into a DevOps culture? It kind of depends on where you're at. It's quite common that a lot of people that came into operations, that they don't have any kind of computer science background. That they learned Windows, they learned how to administer Windows very, very quickly, very well, I might add. But for them, if they don't have any kind of a scripting, automation, programming background, they're going to have to go back in and backfill and learn those skills. Other systems, people, if you were going to administer, some systems, being an operator or an administrator on that particular system meant that you had to write code to perform those tasks. So they always develop those codes. I've been to a lot of countries where just about everybody that was in the room, everybody that was a administrator had a degree in computer science. They've had the programming classes. They're familiar with concepts such as object-oriented programming. And for them, once you learn one programming language, it's really easy to pick up another. So people that did VB script, it's fairly easy for them to learn PowerShell, although there are some paradigm shifts. People that have known Perl, it's pretty easy for them to change. People that are .NET developers intuitively, know how to do PowerShell. And so depends on your background, depends on, where your org is at and all of that. But it may very well require some additional training, some additional skill and stuff like that. Community is absolutely crucial. I was at a SQL Saturday. In fact, my wife, Teresa, the scripting wife, she's a PowerShell MVP. And she works very, very heavily, with the community, helping people set up user groups, helping to organize things like PowerShell Saturday and events like that. Writing blog posts and all that. I was at a SQL Saturday conference a while back that I was speaking at, and one of the people that was doing a presentation, he was a SQL person. And so he's standing up there and he's telling people that, he said, one of the best things about PowerShell is that PowerShell has a very vibrant community. And he said, you can use Twitter and hashtag PowerShell and send out a question. And because it's a global community, it doesn't matter what time of day or night, you can get an answer back. As an example or an aside to this, I was actually writing a Hey Scripting Guy blog posting one time. And I like to get up early in the morning and write, and I live on the East Coast in the United States. So I was writing a blog post, and I ran across a problem, something that I couldn't quickly solve. And I thought, well, I'll send somebody on the PowerShell team an email and ask them about this. And then I realized, well, wait, they're 3 hours behind me. And so instead, I sent out a tweet. And within 5 minutes, I had 3 different answers. And it was very, very quick. And then the answers came from people that were over here, people that were in Europe, people on the East Coast of the U.S., just from different places. And the PowerShell community is extremely vibrant. And we've all been at the point where, we opened up the PowerShell prompt for the first time and we wonder, oh my goodness, what is this? And you type question mark to get help, and that doesn't give you help. That's an alias for where. So, and then it goes downhill from there. So, yeah, we've all been there. Yeah, and even though I've been doing PowerShell for more than 10 years, I still remember some of those very, very first experiences, when I was like terribly confused. And so we want to help this. The other thing is that the PowerShell community has a number of people who are absolutely in love with PowerShell. PowerShell is one of the very few products where people have written songs about PowerShell. Highway to PowerShell is an example. There's a lot of other PowerShell songs that are out there. And so that just shows, how much, people love this product, because once they learn how to use the product, once they see the power of the product, then it makes a positive impact in their life. Do I have time to tell you like a really short story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is absolutely a true story. And I was teaching a PowerShell class in Denver, Colorado, in the US. And so taught the class, everything was groovy, and then, about a couple months later, I was back in Denver and I was teaching another class, and these were both at the Microsoft office. And so so I'm up in front of the class on the very first day, and I'm getting my laptop and trying to get stuff set up, and this guy comes walking in, and he says, hi, he says, you might not remember me, and I didn't. He says, but I want to tell you, he said, PowerShell saved my life. He says, I was in your class, a couple months ago. And I said, it saved your life? What do you mean? And he says, well, I was the only IT admin at this company. And the users, everybody was driving me crazy. I was working 70 and 80 hours a week. I missed my son's ball games. I missed my daughter's presentation that she did at school. My wife was about to divorce me. I was 50 pounds overweight. My blood pressure was high. Everything else was high. I wasn't sleeping right, anything else. And everything was horrible. And my boss sent me to the PowerShell class because he thought, that if I could learn automation, it would help. So he says, I came back. I automated everything I possibly could. And he says, so now I work 40 hours a week, sometimes less. I go to all my kids' ball games, all my daughter's, events at school. I have time to go to a gym and exercise. I've lost the 50 pounds, and and my marriage is great. He said, literally, PowerShell saved my life. And I go, dude, that's awesome. And I mean, I just literally, I had like chill bumps, and the rest of the class is like standing there. And of course I had to tell him, I can't guarantee PowerShell is going to save your life, but if you use it properly, it can definitely have a positive impact, not only on your work, but also in helping you to achieve a proper work-life balance.